Hello everybody, Andrew Casey at Hypersanity Books. Today I'm taking a look at the Jim Carrey movie, A Christmas Carol. I will touch on certain points within the film compared to the book, and I do think there are parts of the film that I enjoy, and there are some parts that I do not enjoy. Though, I think there is something to look for when we get into this review. Number 1. First edition books. The first edition book is currently available in some places for anywhere between $50,000 to even up to $90,000 US. Whether they're authentic or not is another thing. So you always got to be careful when you're looking online for what you're purchasing. Though with the film, when the storybook opens, that's what the original cover looks like. It's a tribute to A Christmas Carol and the original first printed books. All written in 1843. Number 2. The death of Jacob Marley. This is important because in the book it is done, and some films will not touch on it, like The Muppets Christmas Carol, for the obvious reasons it's targeted for children, talking about death and showing the coffin. Yes, even the part with the tuppence, removing it from the eye sockets, is part of the story as well. Within the interactions, the book has a lot of descriptive details of the cold, icy breath and features of Ebenezer Scrooge, not so much the focus on Jacob Marley being dead. There is a part where it says he's stiff as a board, and what is said in the film is quite accurate to the book. I think there are a lot of accuracies within this film to the book. Number 3, Fred.
There are many things from which I have derived good and have not profited. Christmas being among them.
I think within the Counting House, the scene where Colin Firth, one of my favourite actors of all time, is doing the interactions.
But I've always thought of Christmas as a kind, charitable time.
I will show a little bit of footage from the mocap side of what they use to help bring this book to life and the CGI. And I think with this adaptation of the Fred character is my favourite of all time.
The only time when men open their shut-up hearts and think of all people as fellow travellers to the grave and not some other race of creatures bound on other journeys.
And I think the way Colin Firth pulled it off, and into the other scenes where he's talking and telling the joke, and then when it comes towards the end of the film where they're reconnecting, there is a certain part where Colin Firth played this character well, and it was more heartwarming with this character than any other adaptation.
Although it has never put a scrap of gold or silver in my pocket, I believe it has done me good, and I say God bless it!
Number 4, Eternal Torment. Yes, Jacob Marley is explaining that he's suffering in an eternal torment from the Counting House, spending so much of his time focused on business and selfishness instead of focusing on helping people. A lot of his business didn't help people. It actually it more so sabotage people's lives for their personal gains. Now, with his torment talking about the chains, yes, it is also just in descriptions within the book that Ebenezer would have a bigger and heavier chain because of how many more years, being 7 years, have passed since Jacob Marley died Christmas Eve to this events of this film. Now, with the tone of the story where Scrooge is looking outside, it is within the book, seeing so many spirits of people who are suffering, unable to interact with people to help them. So when you hear the desperation, it is in the book. Number 5, The Ghost of Christmas Past. This is also the most accurate representation of the Ghost of Christmas Past, taking Scrooge throughout his life, seeing his earlier childhood, and yes, he recognises some people, some happiness and happy times. Though he didn't invest into friendships, he spent his time in solitary confinement in school. The descriptions within the book does show how the scene changes and the walls wither and changes the scene to an older version of himself being stuck in the classroom again. And that's his sister in trying to ask to come home. Yes, some other adaptations touch on this, and some adaptations of film do not touch on this part. but she is also the mother of the Fred character, which is relevant within the story. It's confirmed. Number 6, Mr. Fuzzy-Wig and Belle. Mr. Fuzzy-Wig is very accurate in this film. Even the audio book with Patrick Stewart that I reviewed, such a dramatic way that he talks and celebrates and has love and passion for people. I found this movie showed that Ebenezer Scrooge enjoyed this part of his life, working for someone like this, until the later years being more focused on money than the celebration of others. I also feel there are different warnings of what is said in the film when he does meet Belle to when she's going to leave him. Now, within leaving Ebenezer, he does have some strong arguments of what he's trying to do compared to the poverty-living life that people have. And even though Ebenezer looked like he was going to build a good future for Belle, he was that focused on building this life forward that he missed the point of the objective. Now, there was also another channel, Cinema Therapy, that touched on this subject of obsessive-compulsive personality disorder, which is something a lot of goal-driven people can have within a time. Unfortunately for Ebenezer, his lifetime was wasted, and the desperation of how the ghost says not to blame him for the things that have happened, you can't help but to feel that life regret. It's hard to be reminded of where you have gone wrong in life, knowing that you can't change the past. Number 7, The Ghost of Christmas Present.
More than 1800. 1842.
Also an accurate adaptation of the character. I did enjoy this character, though my favourite Ghost of Christmas Present will always be from The Muppets Christmas Carol. Can't help it, love that version more. Now, with the character, yes, it does show between different things of what can be happening Christmas Day to what Scrooge is missing out on. And that's having a relationship with his nephew, what's happening with Bob Cratchit with his family, and the challenges that they have. Again, these scenes were very accurate to the book, though I felt The Muppets Christmas Carol and the audiobook were somewhat better and more enjoyable than this part of the film. That's just my honest opinion. The Ghost of Christmas Present, as one other point is said, have you ever met my brothers? All 1842 of them. Well, that's because the year is 1843 to when the book came out. And I think that is an excellent tribute that this process is explained to happen to one person every year. Which is also tragic for the Ghost of Christmas Present, because within the end of this time, he dies. Not at midnight. It doesn't touch on the time frame. When the bell struck 2 is when the Ghost of Christmas Present comes. It doesn't say afterwards, except for the point where he dies and is no longer. His life is over, and then immediately the Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come comes into effect of the story. Now, one part within the film that is missed in other adaptations is ignorance and want.
No resource?
Are there no prisons?
Are there no workhouses?
The representation of this is fantastic. I enjoyed this part of the film because it was showing the reality of what happens when we're turning our back on our fellow men, and establishing, especially in certain times, if some people had nowhere to go, they were told to go to prison or go to a workhouse, and the way of being treated, it wasn't good. So ignorance and want, ignorance and desperation, whatever way you want to interpret it, but this part of the film I felt was quite effective. Number 8, The Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come. I found this part of the story was frustrating because it was so much CGI animations that were added into the story to try to make it be something more than what the original book was. Now, it doesn't have a fast pace with this part of the story. I feel it drags out with all these different interactions and scenes. My favourite adaptation of The Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come was from the movie Scrooged, and he had to have a second look to what he saw. I love that part of the film, though, again, there's parts of some stories and adaptations that I like and some parts that I don't like. The least favourite Ghost version of Christmas Yet to Come, for me, is this version. Number 9, The Housemaid. This character is an insignificant character, though significant for this part of the story where she explains that she's taken even the clothes off his dead body to sell, and the curtains and everything else. There is a certain part where she's making up for a lack of income or whatever else, but shows to be quite a selfish person. This interpretation is also accurate to the book. Number 10, Final Thoughts. I do think the movie is fantastic, though I will say I enjoy the audiobook much more. It is a good read, but as an audiobook, why not just listen to the audiobook and enjoy it as a seasonal thing, or enjoy it in your own time? That's just something with this story that is good for generations to come. And it has been for quite a lot of years, as this particular book, well, it's over 180 years old. From here, yes, I do think the Jim Carrey version is worth watching. I do think it was interesting how it touched on the redemption. And yes, within the conclusion of the story, there is also an appreciation back to Ebenezer Scrooge for what talents and understandings that he did have of business to use it in the right way, where even with the Bob Cratchit character, how he stops and then interacts with the story, I think it was done well. There are different little parts of the film that you do see, like with Bob Cratchit sliding down the icy pathway. Yes, it is within the book. Some adaptations have included that in. There are so many points where you can compare the book to the film, but I think if you want the most accurate version of the book to film, I think this movie is it. Otherwise, I highly recommend the audiobook, which I have reviewed on the other channel, Hypersanity Audiobooks. I have also reviewed The Muppets Christmas Carol on the Hypersanity Books for Kids channel. There are different adaptations to A Christmas Carol that we can enjoy and learn from, and that's one of the biggest points with this story, is to learn from different parts of our own life, especially from the past, what we do with the present, and what we are looking forward with years to come. And before we do stop there, my other book, The Arsehole Who Didn't Want to Celebrate Christmas, is out now in 2024. Every year this book is going to be put on Goodreads into a giveaway chance. So if you want to get into the giveaway, there's still 8 days to go. I would recommend, I will leave a link in the first comments that's pinned if you want to enter into the competition. Otherwise, you can find the book on Amazon and many other places. Though The Arsehole Who Didn't Want to Celebrate Christmas, you could apply the title even to A Christmas Carol if you wanted to, or Christmas with the Cranks. There are many stories you could apply the title to, and many people you can apply the title to. Maybe you might buy a copy for some of your loved ones. It is a big versioned book, an A4 size, and I recommend the hardcover copy because it's sturdy. Though, that's it for today, and I will see you all next time.